The quiet financial decisions that shape your 40s. Most people think their 40s will be shaped by big moments. A major promotion, a business breakthrough, a financial windfall. But for most people, that's not what actually happens. What really shapes your 40s are the quiet financial decisions you barely notice in your 20s and 30s. The ones that feel harmless, reasonable, even responsible at the time. Because by the time you reach your 40s, it's rarely about making bold moves. It's about living with the structure you've already built. And that structure is almost always the result of small choices repeated quietly for years. This topic matters because most financial pressure in your 40s doesn't come from one bad decision. It comes from years of quiet accumulation. For many people in the US and the UK, their 20s and 30s feel forgiving. Energy is high, time feels abundant. If money feels tight, there's a sense that it can be fixed later. A better job, a higher salary, more experience, everything feels adjustable. And for a while, that's true. But what's forming underneath is a structure. Career paths chosen for short-term stability. Spending habits shaped by convenience. Lifestyle upgrades that feel earned, even sensible, but quietly raise fixed costs. None of these choices feel dangerous on their own. In fact, most of them feel responsible. That's exactly why they go unquestioned. Over time, these decisions stop being flexible. They harden into commitments. A mortgage replaces rent, monthly obligations grow, income rises, but so does dependency. By the time people reach their 40s, it's no longer about earning more, it's about sustaining what already exists. What makes this difficult is that nothing ever felt like a mistake. There was no clear warning sign, just a series of reasonable decisions made without asking where they would lead. The core issue isn't a lack of effort or discipline. It's that many people build their financial lives without thinking structurally. They optimize for comfort today without considering how much freedom they're trading away tomorrow. By the time flexibility matters most, it's often the thing they have the least of. The deeper issue behind financial pressure in your 40s isn't income. It's the patterns formed long before that decade begins. Most people are taught to make financial decisions reactively, not strategically. When income rises, spending rises. When pressure appears, they work harder. When life feels busy, they postpone reflection. This creates motion, but not direction. One of the most powerful forces at play is lifestyle momentum. As careers progress, expenses expand almost automatically. Better housing, higher fixed bills, more commitments. None of this happens out of irresponsibility. It happens because progress is often confused with comfort. Each upgrade feels justified, even earned, but together, they quietly raise the minimum income required just to stand still. Another root cause is career inertia. Early on, people choose roles that feel safe and familiar. Over time, those roles become harder to leave. Skills narrow, risk tolerance drops. The cost of change increases as responsibilities stack up. What once felt flexible slowly becomes fixed. There's also a misunderstanding about time. In your 20s and early 30s, consequences feel distant. Delaying investing or skill building doesn't feel urgent. Flexibility feels optional, but time doesn't warn you when optional becomes essential. None of these patterns feel harmful in isolation. That's why they're so effective. They postpone the cost, and by the time the cost shows up, usually in your late 30s or 40s, the margin for error is smaller. And change feels heavier. The problem isn't bad decisions. It's unexamined ones, repeated quietly for years. The solution to financial pressure in your 40s isn't a dramatic reset. It's a quieter shift in how decisions are made long before pressure becomes unavoidable. The first change is moving from comfort-based decisions to option-based decisions. Instead of asking whether something makes life easier right now, the more useful question is whether it preserves or expands future flexibility. This applies to careers, spending, and even time commitments. Comfort feels good in the moment, but options matter more over decades. Another important shift is how income is treated. For many people, income becomes a scorecard, proof that they're doing well. A better approach is to see income as raw material, something to be directed, not admired. Even small surpluses, when used intentionally, can reduce future dependence if they're aimed at skills, assets, or systems that don't require constant effort. This phase doesn't require abandoning stability. In fact, stability can be useful when handled intentionally. A steady job can fund investing. Predictable income can support learning new skills. The difference is awareness. You stop assuming that stability automatically leads somewhere, and start asking what it's actively building. It also means slowing down lifestyle expansion, not permanently denying enjoyment, but resisting automatic upgrades. Each fixed expense increases the cost of flexibility. Delaying some comforts creates room to adjust without panic later. Progress here often feels underwhelming. There's no sudden breakthrough, no visible transformation, but direction quietly changes. And once direction shifts, consistency becomes powerful. You're no longer reacting to pressure, you're positioning ahead of it. That's how real financial control begins, not through urgency, but through intention, applied early enough to matter. The impact of financial decisions made quietly in your 30s and early 40s rarely shows up right away. That delay is what makes them so easy to underestimate. In the short term, different paths often look the same. People go to work, pay their bills, and manage responsibilities. Life appears stable. There's no clear signal that one direction is significantly better than another. But over time, the gap widens in ways that are impossible to ignore. When decisions are driven by comfort and short-term stability, life gradually becomes more rigid. More income is pre-committed. More time is locked into obligations. Flexibility shrinks not because of one mistake, but because of many reasonable choices stacked together. By the time people notice the pressure, options feel limited and changes feel risky. On the other hand, when decisions prioritize flexibility and leverage early, progress feels slower but more durable. Skills deepen, assets compound quietly, income becomes less fragile. Time starts to feel like something you manage, not something that manages you. This is where discipline matters more than intensity. Big moves are rarely sustainable. Consistent, intentional actions repeated over years shape outcomes far more powerfully than bursts of effort. The people who gain the most control later in life are usually the ones who made boring, patient choices long before they were rewarded. Financial freedom in this context isn't about luxury or stopping work entirely. It's about optionality, the ability to slow down, pivot, or say no without panic. And that kind of freedom is built gradually, long before it's ever felt. The future isn't shaped by dramatic moments. It's shaped by quiet direction, held consistently over time. Most people don't ruin their financial future with one bad decision. They shape it through dozens of quiet ones that feel reasonable at the time. They choose convenience because life is busy. They delay reflection because nothing feels broken yet. They assume that stability will eventually turn into freedom, simply because it feels responsible. And for a long time, that assumption seems harmless. Until it isn't. By the time people reach their 40s, the results of earlier choices begin to surface, not as a crisis, but as a narrowing. Fewer options, less room to pause, more pressure to keep things exactly as they are. Financial stress doesn't always show up as panic, it often shows up as rigidity. The point of this conversation isn't to create regret or to suggest that anyone should have done everything differently. Hindsight is easy. Life is complex. Most decisions are made with limited information and good intentions. The real value lies in awareness. Once you start noticing how small, repeated choices shape flexibility, your relationship with money and time begins to change. You stop assuming that being busy means progressing. You stop treating income as proof that everything is fine. You begin asking whether your current direction actually supports the life you want later, not just the life you can manage right now. There's no perfect plan. There never was. Financial clarity isn't about certainty, it's about direction. And direction can be adjusted at any stage, as long as it's questioned honestly. So here's what really matters moving forward. Do you feel like the decisions shaping your future are being made intentionally, or simply inherited from habit and expectation? And which quiet financial choice do you think has had the biggest influence on where you are today? Share your thoughts in the comments. That's often where clearer thinking begins, and where better decades quietly start to take shape.